You're live with BBC News. Let's turn to a really important story because among the many thousands of political prisoners currently being held in Iran's jails are 7 prominent environmentalists imprisoned since 2018, serving lengthy sentences for spying, although no evidence has ever been produced. A committee of Iranian ministers even concluded there was no evidence that they were spies, but a revolutionary court convicted them on various national security charges. Well, let's talk now on the programme to Kaveh Madani, former deputy head of Iran's Department of Environment, who himself was previously arrested in Iran. I'll come to your own experience in a moment or two, but in terms of those people I mentioned there in the introduction being held, tell viewers around the world who perhaps might not be familiar with this story, the circumstances around them, the charges that have been thrown at them.
This is not a fiction. This is a story of the 21st century. Some people have been jailed and called spies for caring about natural resources, for caring about the environment, for their efforts to preserve and rescue Asiatic cheetahs and Iran's biodiversity, for caring about their homeland and returning home from their good life and peaceful life in Europe and the US, instead of building their monuments around the world and giving them awards, they have been called spies because the Islamic Revolutionary Guards people thought that or claimed that these people were helping the enemy governments. They were spies of MI6 and Mossad and CIA. And they were trying to track Iran's missile activities and nuclear activities. It's a joke. It sounds funny, but people have been in jail since 2018. One of them suspiciously died in Evin prison. The interrogators claimed that he committed suicide. So far, no evidence has been provided as well. No evidence has been provided to date to convince people that they have done anything, one single thing wrong, and anything against national security. But they're there, and that's what we know. The world should know about their story.
And I mentioned that you were deputy head of Iran's Department of Environment. You then were also arrested. What is it that the Iranian authorities seem to fear around environmentalists?
Well, Iran is not unique in being afraid of those who care about the environment. Big corporations and those with interest in making money and short-term gaining are afraid of the environmental activists or see them as some sort of a barrier against their movement. But in Iran, something is unique. First of all, Iran doesn't like any activity that is independent and non-governmental and relies only on ordinary people and regular citizens. But on top of that, environment has a very unique power. It has the power to unite people, regardless of their ideology, whether they support the Islamic Republic or not, whether they're Muslim or not, and this is not true for in other sectors, and that is why the Islamic Republic, I think, is paranoid about the environmental sector.
A final question, because you mentioned Evin prison. Those who served alongside those people still detained talked about torture, talked about solitary confinement. How alarmed are you in terms of how these people are still being held and their mental condition and physical condition?
Well, I mean, if you serve for a few hours in Evin prison in solitary confinement, you won't be a normal human, after that. So these people, some of them have been in solitary confinement for 2 years. It's, but what I'm proud of as a person who has interacted with them is that these people, despite all they have gone through, they're fighting their environmental life in prison. They're organizing workshops. They're talking to the other prisoners about climate change. They're talking about Iran's biodiversity and educating the rest of the prisoners. And that shows that, yes, their mental health might have been affected, but their love for the environment has not.
Kaveh Madani, we have to leave it there, but thank you so much for joining us live here on BBC News.